The night was supposed to be light, just another charming celebrity interview on late-night TV. But sometimes when egos clash and questions dig deeper than expected, smiles fade fast. And on this particular night, with millions watching, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars would find herself cornered, provoked, and finally pushed too far. What started with laughter would soon turn into the most talked about on-air confrontation of the year. Scarlett Johansson, poised and radiant, enters Stephen Colbert's stage expecting wit and whimsy. What she doesn't know is that Stephen's writers have other plans, and so does Stephen himself. Behind the polished desk and practiced grin, something sharper simmers. Sarcasm, mockery, and a simmering disdain for the image Scarlett represents. What follows is a verbal collision, drenched in tension, missteps, and the kind of uncomfortable truths late-night TV rarely dares to touch. The applause was thunderous as Scarlett Johansson stepped onto the stage of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Under the studio lights, she exuded charm, elegance, and quiet confidence. The crowd erupted with cheers, and even Stephen rose from behind his desk to offer a gentlemanly bow. "Ladies and gentlemen," he grinned, "the woman who somehow saves the world in every Marvel movie, yet still finds time to make the rest of us look boring. Scarlett Johansson." She chuckled, waving to the audience before settling into the guest chair. "That's quite an introduction," she said, adjusting her posture with relaxed grace. "Only fitting," Stephen replied, folding his hands over his cue cards. "So let's talk about this new indie film you're doing. Very artsy, very non-explosive." His tone was teasing, but it carried a thin, almost imperceptible barb. Scarlett smiled through it. "It's a story I felt deeply connected to. A different pace, definitely, but an important one." "Of course," Stephen said, nodding thoughtfully. "I mean, it's brave to step away from billion-dollar franchises to, talk about sad people in cafes." There was a slight laugh from the audience, but Scarlett's smile faltered just for a moment. She recovered quickly, lifting her chin. "I think stories that reflect real human emotion matter," she said. "Not everything has to blow up to leave an impact." Stephen raised an eyebrow. "Well, you've certainly blown up plenty over the years." The audience laughed again, but now the tension was there, flickering beneath the surface. "Metaphorically speaking," he added, almost too late. Scarlett looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I think you know how to choose your words, Stephen." There was a beat of silence. It wasn't long, but it was long enough for the audience's nervous laughter to fade. Stephen pushed on, flipping through his notes. "Let's talk about this foundation you're involved with. Climate, right? I'm always fascinated by celebrities saving the planet while flying private." Scarlett blinked. She leaned slightly forward. "Are you asking about the foundation or mocking it?" Stephen feigned innocence. "I'm simply pointing out the beautiful paradox of it all." The air had changed. The audience sensed it. Some chuckled uncomfortably. Others whispered. Scarlett adjusted in her seat, her gaze sharpening. "The paradox is in thinking that we can't care about the planet and also live our lives," she said coolly. "You can critique, or you can ask real questions." Stephen leaned in. "Maybe I'm just asking the questions the internet's already asking." "Then maybe the internet should book the next guest," Scarlett replied, her voice low but cutting. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Stephen gave a tight smile, tapping his cue cards on the desk. "Well, we're just getting started, folks." But everyone could tell something real had just cracked through the shiny late-night veneer. Scarlett crossed her legs, eyes narrowed slightly. Stephen shuffled his notes. The show had only just begun. The cameras rolled on, but something in the air had curdled. The laughter was gone now, replaced by silence laced with unease. Stephen Colbert glanced up from his cue cards and gave the audience a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "So," he said, dragging out the syllable like a provocation, "let's shift gears for a moment. You've become quite the spokesperson these days, haven't you?" Scarlett tilted her head slightly. "I speak up when I believe in something." "That's not new." Stephen leaned forward, elbows on his desk. Right. But I wonder, when you take a stand on one issue, do you feel obligated to speak on all of them? Or is it more of a pick and choose based on PR strategy?" The audience stirred. Scarlett blinked slowly, lips parting in disbelief. Excuse me? I mean, Stephen continued, ignoring the tension, it's just curious. You champion women's rights, equality, mental health, noble stuff. But when it comes to things like the political climate or certain global conflicts, it's radio silence. I'm just wondering if silence is a form of privilege or if it's just convenience. Gasps echoed softly. Even the crew shifted. Scarlett sat back, the light in her eyes hardening. Is that really a question, Stephen? Or are you trying to corner me into becoming your headline? Stephen raised his brows, mock innocence painted across his face. I'm just having a conversation. Isn't that what we do here? Scarlett didn't blink. Conversations don't come with ambushes. He chuckled dryly. You know, you've played characters who never back down. I was hoping to see some of that fire in real life. Scarlett leaned forward, her tone colder than the studio lights. You want fire? Fine. Let's talk about integrity, about how you invite people on this show under the guise of good faith and then bait them with snide insinuations and weaponized sarcasm. That's not journalism. That's performance. A stunned silence followed. Stephen tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow. So, no comment on the hypocrisy angle, he asked. Scarlett's jaw tensed. You don't get to call me a hypocrite because I didn't tweet about every world issue this week. I'm an actress, not a diplomat, and I use my platform where I believe it counts, not where it earns me applause from your audience. There was a rare crack in Stephen's composure. He stiffened, clearly thrown. Touchy tonight, aren't we? He said with a weak smirk. Scarlett stood slowly. The room froze. I came here to talk about a film that means something to me, she said, voice steady but steely. Instead, I'm standing in a studio that pretends to be about ideas but thrives on gotchas. That's not conversation. That's a trap. And frankly, I'm done playing along. Stephen tried to respond, but she held up a hand. Don't, she said firmly. You had your moment, and you wasted it. And with that, she walked off stage. The studio was still. The applause sign blinked uselessly above. Stephen Colbert sat back, jaw tight. For once, the king of late night didn't have a comeback. The silence that followed Scarlett Johansson's dramatic exit wasn't just studio silence. It echoed far beyond the stage, spilling onto social media, entertainment news, and morning talk shows around the globe. Within minutes, clips of her final words, "You had your moment, and you wasted it," began trending across platforms. That Scarlett vs. Colbert shot to the top of Twitter. TikTok edits, YouTube reaction videos, and celebrity think pieces flooded the internet. The reactions were split, but passionate. Some applauded Scarlett's poise and refusal to be baited into a shallow political brawl. Others called her walkout a masterclass in self-respect. Meanwhile, a vocal minority accused her of avoiding tough questions. But no matter the opinion, everyone agreed. This was no ordinary interview. Backstage, Colbert sat in silence as producers hovered nearby, whispering into earpieces, scrambling to fill the time left by the unfinished segment. He eventually returned to the stage, visibly shaken but trying to regain control. Well, he said with a forced smile, that was unexpected. But his usual charm rang hollow. The audience barely chuckled. The studio, once electric, now felt like a courtroom after a verdict. The following morning, the fallout continued. Media outlets dissected every frame of the interaction. Body language experts weighed in. PR professionals offered unsolicited advice. Scarlett's team released a brief statement. Miss Johansson stands by her words. She came to discuss art, not to be ambushed. Stephen's camp, on the other hand, remained mostly silent until a carefully worded monologue aired 2 nights later. I've built this show on tough questions and honest conversations, Colbert began. But sometimes in pursuit of those, we forget that the person sitting across from us is also a human being. I regret how last night unfolded. I take responsibility for pushing too far. Some viewed it as sincere, others labeled it damage control. The apology, however, didn't stop the consequences. A petition demanding Colbert apologize directly to Scarlett reached 250,000 signatures in under 24 hours. One of his sponsors paused their advertising, and late-night competitors seized the moment. using the incident to draw contrast. Scarlett, meanwhile, kept her distance from the drama. Instead, she doubled down on promoting the film she had originally come to discuss, making quiet appearances on smaller outlets, podcasts, and panels where thoughtful dialogue still had space to breathe. Ironically, the film's title, Reflection, took on new meaning. Its box office soared, helped in no small part by the public sympathy Scarlett had earned. Audiences now viewed her role in the film through a deeper lens, inspired not just by her performance, but by the woman herself. In the end, the confrontation wasn't just about ego, politics, or entertainment. It became a cultural mirror, a moment that forced viewers to question the fine line between holding power accountable and weaponizing a platform for spectacle. And as millions rewatched the now infamous exchange, one line lingered more than any punchline. You had your moment, and you wasted it. A closing reminder that sometimes silence walks off stage with more power than words ever could. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful stories.